Our theme for this month is sanctuary, a very powerful concept. Human beings need to find a place where we can feel safe and connected to the world. Perhaps we have in our own mind a special place or state of being where we experience a sense of sanctuary, away from the chaos of the world, a place where we find peace. It was almost exactly a year ago when our beautiful sanctuary garden was planted. So many of us made donations of plants, or over the last year helped care for the plantings, especially during those crucial early months when water and caretaking was so important. Thank you to each of you. Just this past week, I don't know if you noticed, a bench was installed with a path from the sidewalk so members and friends and neighbors can sit to find moments of peace and sanctuary. What a riot of beauty our garden has provided these last months. It now provides homes and food for a diverse range of creatures, even the hawks that are hunting in our garden. It brings joy to so many. Our garden is a reminder of how connected we are, how completely interwoven with other living things. We breathe in what the plants breathe out. It was a wonderful revelation to me when years ago I came to really understand that Mother Earth, Gaia, if you want to call her that, is indeed a living, breathing being. When we are mindful of our breathing, we are, in a profound sense, breathing with Mother Earth. We are breathing in harmony with creation. When we breathe mindfully, we are conscious of breathing in peace and breathing out love. When I found Unitarian Universalism, one of the tenets of our faith that really drew me in was our seventh principle, the belief in the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part. Nowhere in my life experience or training had I seen such a profound statement of our connection to creation. I realized this sense of connection was missing from my earlier religious life. The seventh principle, while in harmony with modern understandings of science, was not originally part of our principles and purposes. It came into reality as our faith has evolved and expanded in our understanding of reality. Historically, both Unitarians and Universalists, as free religious traditions, have always denounced creeds. Actually, we've sort of been paranoid about creeds. I think it comes from those early centuries when, if you didn't agree with the early Christian creeds, you got burned at the stake. That may have been like genetically imprinted on us. But we've always been nervous about creeds, while at the same time, our forebears understood that it was important to clearly articulate what our non-creedal faith stands for. We all know the joke about the Unitarian Universalist who goes and knocks on the door and then doesn't know what to say when someone comes to the door and says, "What do you believe?" and we stand there. Or the Unitarian Universalist who would burn a question mark on the front lawn. But historically, we knew that we had to have a statement of faith. So beginning in 1803, the Universalists developed what's known as the Winchester Confession, a statement of Universalist beliefs. And that statement was adapted both in 1899 and 1935. The Universalists didn't have such a straightforward history of theological statements, as over the last couple of centuries they struggled with their non-Trinitarian beliefs and the influence of the Transcendentalists, among other things. From the founding of the American Unitarian Association in 1825 until the merger of the Unitarians and Universalists in 1961, theological discourse pulled Unitarianism farther and farther away from liberal Christianity. The principles developed during the 1961 merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists didn't speak to many Unitarian Universalists, especially women who felt the original language of the principles needed to be changed because the language excluded women. By the late 1970s, the principles and sources we articulate today address more inclusive language and also included our seventh principle, acknowledging the importance of our connection to the environment and all living things. This principle reminds us that we are not isolated beings, but connected to all of creation. I'm in awe that our Unitarian Universalist faith honors that aspect of reality. Because every time I learn more about discoveries in physics and biology, they seem to affirm both the seventh principle that we're all interconnected and also ancient understandings of our interdependence. The Hindu belief of Indra's net confirms what cultures have understood about the web of existence for millennia before Western religious traditions emerged. When I first discovered the work of my teacher, Dr. Neil Douglas Klotz, the Aramaic scholar, I was profoundly moved by the difference between the Greek worldview of Western Christianity, which sees the world in dualities, heaven is separate from earth, that divides the world into the sacred and profane, and it sees the soul as separate from the body and mind. There's no understanding of interdependence. However, I discovered the worldview of Jesus' day was one that saw everything as sacred, believing that we live and breathe and exist in a sacred reality. In this worldview, every being in creation is part of a sacred unity. This was a worldview in which and from which Jesus taught, and it fit with what I experienced of my world and the modern understandings of science. We live in the midst of sacredness. Or as Albert Einstein said, there are only two ways to live your life, as though nothing is a miracle, or as though everything is a miracle. We live in the midst of wondrous things. To be interwoven and interconnected is awe-inspiring and it's stunning. So if I'm connected to everything, then I am both part of the beauty of nature that gives me joy and peace, and I'm also connected with the raw, uncontrollable ravages of natural law. That means that what we say and do has consequences we might not understand for good or ill. We tend to understand that when a hurricane like Florence comes through, but we often don't understand the ravages of our own actions and words. Our human lives are both powerful and minuscule. We see this most profoundly in climate change, the ultimate example of humanity's culpability for what our actions can do to damage the welfare of all creation. So our engagement with the seventh principle calls us to confront some spiritual truths. The first truth is we must come to grips with the reality that we need to find humility. We need to be humble. We are part of something vastly greater than ourselves. Therefore, we need to do away with any delusions that we might have that we are self-made and therefore better than others, or that we are in control. How many of us have thought, I am in control of my life, and then something whaps us upside the head? We need to see humility as a spiritual practice. We also are called to the spiritual discipline of compassion toward those who are suffering. The seventh principle calls us to affirm our relationship with what is real, the beauty and the terrifying. We must learn to live with respect for all the powers that exist to both heal and destroy our world. We need to be respectful of those who are suffering, rather than to blame them for what happens. We also need the spiritual discipline of offering our respectful attention to the world, so that we can find ways that we, as a community, we as individuals, can heal broken places in our world and in the human community. The Reverend Barbara Merritt, in an essay, wrote, the Unitarian novelist Herman Melville wrote, "We cannot live for ourselves. 1,000 fibers connect us. And among those fibers, as sympathetic threads. Our actions run as causes, and they come back to us as effects. On a daily basis, we affect the web of all existence, just as we are affected by it. To acknowledge the interdependent web of all existence is to admit that we live in the midst of mystery. We are supported and sustained by life forces we do not fully understand. We are acting upon others. We are affecting the quality of others' lives in everything we do. Every one of us is a part of a much larger story than we can comprehend from our own limited perspective. We are, each of us, bound together by an unseen web of existence. It calls us to reflect on the reality that we are not isolated, but connected to everything that is. What a profound statement of our relationship with all creation. In the mid-1300s, St. Catherine of Siena said, "What then is not a sanctuary? Where can I not kneel and pray at a shrine made holy?" May we live each day with eyes open and filled with awe that we are privileged to live with such wonder and power and mystery. Because we honor and cherish our connection to the interdependent web of existence, we give thanks.